Hey, it's Brock here with Uncommon Aquatics, and I'm in the process of stocking this 125-gallon tank. And I've been keeping fish as an obsessive hobby for over 20 years. And I would say I've had pretty much every type of aquarium that you can have, except for this type that I'm setting up right now. And the process I've went through in deciding how to stock this has kind of changed the way I think about bigger aquariums. So I want to talk real quick about my history with stocking aquariums, and I think this is a mindset that a lot of people go through when they get into fish keeping. When I got my first aquarium, it was a 10-gallon aquarium, and I knew nothing about fish keeping. We didn't have YouTube back then, and for my 10-gallon tank, I bought an African cichlid because it was blue. I bought a tiger Oscar because it had a cool red pattern. I bought a tiger shovel nose catfish, and I bought a albino channel cat. Those were the first 4 fish I bought to keep in a 10-gallon aquarium. The only one of those 4 that could have been kept in that 10-gallon was the little African cichlid. None of those fish should have been a first fish that I purchased. Most fish store employees will ask you some questions to find things like that out. But even the best employees don't necessarily ask for a biography from everyone who wants to buy something. A lot of times they just sell you what you want to buy. So I killed all those fish. And that sent me down a rabbit hole of learning and trying to figure out how to do this right and going to all the different stores and asking questions. Within a year, I had 10 aquariums in my house. I think I had 5 10 gallons, a 29, and 4 55 gallons. So those were the biggest I had. And I bought every fish you could buy. I was obsessed with it. Every week we were going to all the local fish stores. We'd drive a couple hours away to go to places that have more exotic fish. And I was still mixing fish that didn't go together and making all kinds of mistakes. And what my very first experience taught me was that all the fish I want are too big for my aquarium. So I was on limited funds. I had young kids and just an hourly job, and I couldn't afford. I bought these cheap aquariums and the cheapest equipment I could put them on. I didn't put them on nice stands. I went super cheap on it when I started. But I was obsessed. Anyway, most of this isn't the point. The point is that my first experience was I bought a small aquarium, and I bought fish that were too big for it. So your mindset, my mindset from day one is, I need a big aquarium so I can have big fish. And mostly, I've kept big fish, aggressive fish, oddball fish. Done lots of cichlids, lots of aggressive cichlids, lots of big catfish. I've done gar, a lot of polypterus, which are known as the Beischer fish and the rope fish. And mostly, I've done piranhas. I've done a lot of oddballs, like butterfly fish. I've done the brackish fish. I've kept about everything. But I always felt like these community tank fish were for small aquariums. These were for people, if you only had small aquariums, then all you get to have is your smaller fish. So I never really invested the energy in it. Now, I kept fish for quite a few years, then I got out of the hobby when we moved. Wasn't very long, I got back into it, and I got a bunch of 29-gallon aquariums, and I got really into planted tanks. And the biggest problem I had, I went through this long learning process once again of how to keep a planted aquarium. And I learned that the way you learn anything else, trial and error. By that time, there starts to be some YouTube channels and Dustin's fish tanks and different things where I could get on and learn about fish keeping. And then it was this different battle of I wanted these big fish, but most of those fish would destroy a planted tank. So I had 2 loves. These big, aggressive, oddball kind of aquarium fish and planted tanks, and the 2 didn't go together. And I couldn't figure out how to reconcile it. So now, as I'm going through this a 3rd time and building out a fish room, and I've got the big koi pond, which is fantastic because it can hold so many big koi. That kind of satisfies my desire for big fish for a few minutes. I started this aquarium off to be a monster aquarium. That was my plan when I bought this tank, is I'm going to get the 125 and I'm going to put big fish in it. But I didn't want to rush into it because I've made the mistake of buying a fish and not loving it and then later wishing I didn't have that fish. And you can maybe sell it back to the local fish store, things like that. I started thinking, is that really what I want? What do I take the most enjoyment out of? And for me, the big Oscar, the big catfish, all of those, even like the big Polypterus or a gar or something, those feel like, because there's only a few of them, they feel almost like a pet, like a dog or a cat. And I thought I could only get that kind of enjoyment out of the aquarium with bigger fish. But then I started thinking how bored I would be to do the same thing again, to go get a couple Oscars and a catfish and put them in here and say, well, it's stocked. So I've been watching a lot of videos, all the good channels, all the channels you know, Aquarium Co-op, and I'm bad with some of the channel names, Primetime Aquatics, and is it KG Tropicals? And I'm so bad with some of these names. The Cichlid Bros. I've been going to a lot of fish stores before buying any fish for this. I did a ton of research. And one guy locally that owns a fish store told me, just because you have the big aquarium doesn't mean you can't have these schooling fish. And so I started looking for how I could do a setup that had my heavily planted tank with my driftwood and all of the things I wanted to incorporate and still have some showpiece fish. And I think I've got a pretty good setup put together. Now what I'd like from you guys is some opinions on what you think about the setup I've done and some recommendations for what I continue to add. Now the camera usually makes it hard to see the activity in the aquarium. I've been messing with where I put my lights, and because I always get a glare and my tank looks cloudy and it's really not. This tank is pretty clear. I've got two hang on the back filters that are the Marineland 70s, and then I've got an FX2. So the rating on these aquariums is the rating on these three filters is 315 gallons, and I have 125. So I'm basically triple filtering this. And I basically, honestly, I have a minimum stocking load at this time. Let me count up the fish that are actually in it. I have 10 stare-by Corydoras. There's the little white and black spotted that don't get very big at all. I've got 3 Yoyo Loaches. I've got 4 mollies. I've got, I think, 15 small tetras. I believe those are candy cane tetras. Then I've got about a dozen zebra danios. I've got 4 dwarf frogs. And all of those are group fish and schooling fish. And having never put focus onto those type of fish, I didn't realize the level of enjoyment you can get out of watching their behavior. And then I thought, what could I get, as I talked to this fish store owner, what could I get that would give me the activity level of having 100 schooling fish, along with having some bigger showpiece fish that wouldn't hurt the schooling fish? And then I went down the rabbit hole of looking up every type of interesting or oddball fish. Not so much oddball, but bigger showpiece type fish for this size aquarium that have personality and are interesting, but will play nice in the community and won't tear up my plants. So I put together some lists, and I've started to acquire these fish. And I believe that for the most part, they're going to mix well together. So the larger fish I have, well, the first non-schooling fish I have that a lot of people might not think about for this type of community is female bettas. Bettas, whichever term you prefer. But those females, they still have a reputation for not getting along. But if you give them 125 gallons and all this other activity, they hardly pay any attention to each other. So I've had this collection of fish set up for about the last week while I tried to decide on my showpiece fish. And I've added a few of those showpiece fish now. So the next thing we have is actually right in front of us. And I'm not sure you can see it again because I'm not sure how as I look at the screen, I don't think you're going to be able to pick him out, but straight in front of my finger, we have a golden long fin dwarf ram cichlid. Beautiful little fish. He's gold, kind of orange, the belly's almost white, and he's got long kind of flowing fins up behind him. And as I was putting this together, I thought about several cool species like tiger barbs or clown loaches would look great in here, but tiger barbs mess with long-fin fish. So I didn't want to do that. They can be pests. I wanted to do clown loaches, and they would fit in here, but not if I aquascape a lot and have a lot of the ground space taken up. I decided I didn't want any larger bottom dwellers, so instead of those, I went with the Cory and the Yoyo Loach. And then right here is our next showpiece fish. He's going to be the boss of the tank. This is an electric blue Accra. That's another peaceful cichlid that doesn't eat plants, doesn't bully. And with these mid-sized cichlids, you're okay to mix them into a community like this. And it's possible that he might get big enough that he eats the danios, and I may have to make a change there. But those fish, like that electric blue Accra, he can get up to 6, maybe 7 inches, but most things I see say realistic 6. So you're going to have a good sized fish in there that is still going to allow this community to thrive. And he's gorgeous blue and he's got personality. I love that fish already. So we've got that ram. We have this blue Accra. And then the biggest concern with these mid-sized cichlids, the only time they become really mean or aggressive is if you have a breeding pair. So with some of these fish, you either want 1 or you want a dozen. And I'm not doing a blue Accra tank. I'm doing a community tank. So I only want 1. If there were 2 and they happen to be male and female and tried breeding, that's when you could have a problem. So I may end up making sure at some point that I have a few of some of these cichlids that are all the same gender. But after those 2, my next showpiece fish is a balloon ram. And I believe there's enough difference between the balloon ram and the longfin ram that I probably am not going to have a breeding behavior, but I guess we'll see. And those stay very small, but it's a gorgeous fish. After that, I've got a Geophagus, and it's a Geophagus Tapajos. This is, again, a 5 to 6 inch, absolutely gorgeous, super colorful fish that's going to have that personality, but be peaceful and leave the plants alone. And those are really the type I'm searching for. So the other fish we have in here, we've got 2 Killifish that are about 4 inches long, but they're really thin. They mainly stay up at the top, and they're a peaceful topwater fish. Now, as I listed off, that's a lot of fish already in here. But most of these fish that are in here don't get much bigger than they are, and this tank is not stocked. My filtration can handle much higher stocking than this. I could add a lot more fish. I also believe I could add a lot more fish without having any aggression problem. I could go get 50 neon tetras or more danios or a wide range of other things without having any overstocking problems. Let's count how many fish are actually in here. So by my count, I have 53 fish in here, and it's not even close to fully stocked. If every fish in here was fully grown, it still would not be fully stocked. So I was thinking about it. What is the most fun for me? Actively managing the aquarium is the most fun. And if you put just a few big fish in here, then you're done. You just feed them, you look at them, you love them, you watch them. But with a micro aquarium that is this big, treat it like a nano tank. I can be constantly adding plants, trimming plants, checking the leaves. Does that need fertilization? Adding root tabs, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a few more Cory? Yeah. The most interesting thing for me is managing it, and I can manage it a lot more if I treat it like a nano tank. The next thing that's fun for me is going to the store and getting more fish. If you're buying fish that get 15 inches long, you don't get to go to the store every week and buy 2 more. With these, I do. And here's a way I was thinking about it. What would be your dream aquarium? We just recently made a video of me and my grandson at the Wonders of Wildlife Bass Pro Aquarium. And it's just mesmerizing because the bodies of water are so big, you can watch 100 big fish swimming around at once and watch the activity level. But if I sit really close to this and I watch those Cory, and then I get distracted by the barbs, and then the frog shoots up, and then I remember the Accra, and then here go the mollies. Like, there's so much activity that I can sit here and watch and watch and watch. And it's not even stocked yet. So, I've got a list of other fish I still want to add, and I'm going to show you that list. One I've known all along is an angelfish. I think I'm going to get a red cap or a koi angel. I only want one, but I want my showpiece fish. I want there to be 6 to 10 larger, bright colored, really nice fish. Oh, and that balloon ram just came down. Is he in the shot? Let's turn it. There's that balloon ram right there. I'm considering a butterfly fish. I'm not sure if I have anything in here that would come up underneath him and mess with him, but I've got floating plants and cover for him, and he might do all right. I'm still looking into that. I want to get a cockatoo cichlid. The name is a Pistogramma cockatoides. Fantastically super colorful little fish. It almost seems like a Betta on steroids. Beautiful fish. A zebra Accra. I don't know if that could potentially breed with the blue Accra. It's a variant of the Accra. A crabensis. Really a lot more of these small cichlids that are compatible. Keyhole cichlid, rainbow cichlid, checkerboard cichlid, topaz cichlid, a festivus, a hybrid parrot. There's a bunch of hybrid parrots that don't get very big and their mouths don't get very big. Now, the other cool thing about these fish that I'm choosing is my next tank is going to be a monster tank. I'm going to do probably a 240 next, and in that I'm planning to get an arowana, some Oscars, and a peacock bass. And some of these fish, like that Geophagus and the blue Accra, and some of these bigger fish can make the jump over there. So I did think about getting those clown loaches and growing them out because they're such slow growers that once they got to a medium size, they could go in as starter fish with the small arowana and the small Oscar and hold their own, and then I'd have some interesting fish for that aquarium. So I love the science project aspect of fish keeping. It's so much fun to do the research and try to figure out what will work with what. Like I said, I've always kind of wanted tiger barbs, and for whatever reason I've just never done tiger barbs, and every time I see them I'm like, one of these days I'll set up a tiger barb school. And I thought that'd be perfect for this. But there's a lot of fish in here that are going to have problems with those tiger barbs. So you've got to do your research and figure all these things out. But to me, that's the most fun part. That and just sitting here and watching them. If you're stressed out about something else and you just watch your fish for a while, it's so relaxing. Anyway, I'd like to hear your suggestions for things to put in this tank. Like I said, it's over-filtered. We have hard water. It's a little bit acidic, like 6.5, and I try to get fish that can exist with the water conditions I already have. It's 125 gallons. There are currently 60 fish in here, but as you can see, it's not really overstocked. Even if these were fully grown, I've got room for more fish. So, let me know in the comments what you think I should add to this tank, or any of these fish you think will be a problem. Oh, there's the Killifish if he came on camera. But I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.